Gospel of the Lord.
When I was little, we used to have a saying, secrets are no fun unless you share with everyone. And I'm sure most of you have heard that before. I don't know where that originated, but I think everybody grows up with that saying. And my first thought when I was younger and I heard that was, well, that's a bunch of nonsense, right? Literally the only reason why secrets are any fun is because not everybody knows them. If everybody knew a secret, then it's not a secret anymore. It's just a story. Stories aren't any fun. Everybody can hear those. But you know what? After I spent some time as a kindergarten teacher, I started to realize just how true this little mantra is. You know, there's nothing that brings about more sadness and division and anger and tears and complaining and hitting and yelling in a kindergarten classroom than a secret. Secrets create haves and have-nots. They designate some as powerful and others as powerless. Secrets are no fun, especially when you're the teacher. But don't you feel like we live in a world of secrets sometimes? One of the most damaging heresies in the early church was that of Gnosticism, or this idea that certain people possess secret knowledge that not everyone else is privy to. You know, someone will say, I've had this revelation from God and no one else knows about it, or an angel told me something that y'all don't know and that makes me special. And what do we hear in the book of Ecclesiastes, one of my favorite lines in the whole Bible? There's nothing new under the sun, right? Gnosticism lives just as strong today as it did during the first century. And if you don't believe me, just hop on the internet, log on to social media, take a look at some of the ads that will be recommended to you. Secret to a happy life. Secret to a lasting marriage. Secret to obtaining old age. Doctors don't want you to know this secret about digestive health. Dentists don't want you to know this secret about oral hygiene. Everything is secrets, right? Fortune tellers, mediums, horoscopes, palm readers. There's a reason why these things are so popular these days. So much of the ideology embraced, especially by my generation, is based on the idea that there are no universal truths. You know, we say things like, well, truth has been revealed to me, but not to you. I follow my special secret truth. You follow your truth. What's been revealed to me has not been revealed to you. Secrets are no fun unless they're shared with everyone. And nobody wants to share anything anymore, right? It's all personal. We want to keep everything to ourselves and maybe just with those who are like-minded, kind of this echo chamber idea. And my fear is that even Christians will fall into this trap. You know, as the world becomes more hostile to organized religion, Christians everywhere will be tempted to retreat into these strongholds, these little strongholds. We batten down the hatches and lock the doors, gather my family together. Now, this is my Bible, this is my Jesus, this is my God, and as long as I have my own little personal relationship with God, I live in my own little personal world, then I'm good to go. You know, there are certainly a lot of threats that are facing our church these days, maybe threats against religious liberty or threats in the form of legal or bodily persecution, depending on what area of the world you happen to live in. But the greatest threat that faces our Catholic faith is the threat that's self-imposed, the threat that the Catholic Church, the universal church, that word Catholic means universal, the threat that the universal church could cease to be universal at all. The threat that as living our faith publicly becomes more difficult, we begin to embrace a secret religion, a religion that's celebrated perhaps only here in this building one time a week, or maybe a little bit at home. A religion that's very much cut off and compartmentalized in our lives. And a religion that's cut off from the world has just as much chance of multiplying and spreading as a solitary animal in confinement, right? We have to avoid this self-imposed sterilization of our own faith. The world truly does need the Catholic Church now more than ever. The world needs to know that Jesus Christ is alive and that there's hope for us, not only in this world, but in the life to come. And for that reason, our faith cannot be a secret. The late great Archbishop and also television star Fulton Sheen, who many of you might remember, he once famously said, "There are not 100 people in the United States who hate the Catholic Church, but there are millions who hate what they wrongly perceive the Catholic Church to be." And isn't that precisely the problem? When something is kept a secret, it can become anything to anybody. And oftentimes, it becomes just about the worst possible thing to virtually everybody. Think of it this way. Say there's a breaking scandal regarding your favorite sports team, all right? And the owner of the sports team, he's approached by the media, but he simply says, "No comment. I refuse to comment on any of this." Now, if you're a fan of that team, you might be inclined to assume the best, right? Well, that's all a misunderstanding, right? They didn't do anything wrong. Don't worry about it. It's a mistake. The truth will prevail in the end. But if you already have an inclination to root against that team, if you don't like that team already, the lack of transparency will undoubtedly lead to nothing but the worst of assumptions, right? Where there's a vacuum of truth, assumption, no matter how bad it is, becomes reality. And that's why the Catholic Church needs to truly be Catholic. That's why those of us who make up this universal church need to kind of be politely pinched now and again and reminded of the meaning of that word, Catholic. Secrets are no fun, and our faith is not a secret. Jesus says in our gospel today, what we hear whispered, we should proclaim from the rooftops. What's whispered, proclaim from the rooftops. Nothing that is concealed should go without being revealed. What's one of the final commandments that Jesus gives his disciples before he ascends into heaven? It's the Great Commission. Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. It's not go forth and think about the things that I've taught you and keep them to yourselves so that everyone can make really negative assumptions about everything that I've told you, and then maybe down the road you can charge somebody $25 to purchase a book where you write about some of the things that I told you. No, Jesus doesn't say that. Think about how often throughout the gospel narratives, Jesus, he tells his disciples these parables, these very personal stories. He's giving them individual information, but he's so clear that this information is not meant to be personal revelation. It's for everyone. Go and shout it from the rooftops. Go and make disciples of all nations. Recently I heard something that I thought was kind of a neat play on words. I heard the Catholic Church in the 21st century referred to as a non-profit organization. Non-profit organization. And we're talking non-profit as in P-R-O-P-H-E-T. It's kind of harsh, right? A non-profit organization, because there's hardly a prophet among us anymore. That's the accusation. But the Jeremiahs and the Ezekiels and the Isaiahs of the Old Testament, they were never meant to be one-offs, kind of these unique cases. They were never meant to be exceptions, but the norms. Every single one of us has accepted this reality. We may not think that we have, but we have. It's inherent in our baptism. We are baptized into the threefold nature of Jesus: priest, king, and prophet. prophet, every single one of us who's baptized. So what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that we have to stand on a street corner, holding a sign with big neon letters or something. It doesn't mean that we need to start a podcast talking about how the end of the world is upon us. All it means is that we don't keep our faith a secret, right? Why are each of us here? I hope you're here not just out of a sense of obligation. I hope you're here not just because you like the music. The music can be quite nice. I hope you're here not just because mom or dad or grandma or grandpa went to Catholic Mass somewhere along the line, so now we do too, because it's culturally expected. I hope you're here because you believe with all your heart that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and that the Catholic Church possesses the fullness of truth found in the gospel, preaches the fullness of truth. I hope you're here because you find that the life of Jesus brings joy to your own life. I hope you're here because you're excited to be a part of this militant church, this church that's on a pilgrimage to heaven. I hope you're here because you find that the closeness that we experience with Jesus Christ in the Eucharist is an intimacy that can be found nowhere else in the world. I hope you're here because you've come to the conviction that nothing else suffices. Nothing else offers a sense of home like the Catholic Church. And if you're here for any of those reasons, or hopefully all of those reasons, then you need to be a prophet. We all need to be prophets. In these days, everybody seems to be selling a secret. But what Jesus shares with us is a proclamation. That's what it's called when the priest or the deacon reads the gospel. It's not a simple reading of the gospel, it's a proclamation of the gospel. It's meant to be figuratively shouted, not whispered. So the question then I think we need to ask is, what are we afraid of? And that's not a rhetorical question. I ask this question to myself as much as I ask it hypothetically to all of you. I have family members and friends who have abandoned their Catholic faith. I'm sure we're all in that boat in some way. And they're searching, right? They're searching for secrets out there. And I have something I want to proclaim to them, and it's easy for me to do that as a priest here in this church. Not so easy when I'm not wearing this and I'm at home hanging out with my brother or my aunts or uncles or whoever. But when it comes time for me to open my mouth and share the gospel, I feel all that comes out is a whisper, right? I want to shout from the rooftops, but it's just this whisper. Am I ashamed of the gospel? No, I believe it with all my heart, and I'm sure you do as well. But I think deep down I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid that people will reject me, will get mad at me, they'll be angry that I'm trying to share something with them, that people will demand that I take all this Jesus business and I put it in a box and I keep it kind of locked away where it belongs. Don't let it influence anything else in anybody else's lives. But that's a lie, right? Because if we truly believe that we're sharing the good news with someone, why would we ever hesitate? Just want to end today with a story. I told this story at a daily mass a few months back, so if you remember this, kind of bear with me. I really like this. Many of you probably remember Penn Jillette, right? He was the magician, part of that Penn and Teller duo. He was the one who talked. Anyway, Penn is known as a very outspoken atheist. He's very, very vehement in his atheism. So some time ago, I came across a video monologue he uploaded to YouTube, kind of cheap video. He's just recording himself with a cell phone or something. And he's just speaking kind of candidly into the camera. And he's talking about how throughout his life he's just grown so tired of very outwardly religious people who come off to him as being somewhat phony, right? Maybe they're just hypocritical. They profess to believe all these things, but then they don't really live that in any possible way. Anyway, so there was one time after one of his shows, and Penn was approached by a fan. And the fan was super complimentary about the show, how much he loved it. And he had actually been to the previous night's show, and where he was called up on stage as a volunteer. So he brought some of the props with him that he had received when he was on stage the previous night. And Penn thought the guy just wanted to have some of the props signed by him. But instead, the guy did something somewhat surprising. He took a book, out of his pocket, and he handed it to Penn. And it was a pocket New Testament, one of those little Bibles with the Psalms and sometimes the Proverbs in there as well. And inside the front cover were some phone numbers and a little personal note that this gentleman had written for Penn. And the guy said, "I'm going to be honest with you. I'm proselytizing right now. I'm trying to evangelize you right now. I'm not crazy, I promise you. I'm a businessman. I'm sane. I just want you to have this as a gift." And Penn said that he had an awareness that he was pretty sure the guy giving him the Bible was well aware of Penn's atheism, that he was an atheist. And you might think that would have made Penn upset. I would have assumed that, right? Wouldn't an outspoken atheist be annoyed if you handed him or her a Bible and insinuated that he needed to read it? It needed to be read in order for him to experience any sort of joy, happiness, what have you. But I tell you this, Penn, as he's giving this video monologue, he's looking into the camera, and it almost seems as if he's on the verge of tears as he's recounting this. And he says something that I found so profound, and this is, I think, pretty much verbatim. He said, "I've always said the only type of religious people I don't respect are the ones who don't evangelize. The ones who don't evangelize. How much do you have to hate a person? How much do you have to hate a person to believe with all your heart that there is a heaven, that there is a hell, that there is an opportunity for eternal life, and not tell a person that? Not tell them that. If you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that a truck was about to run me over, would you not tell me? That was a good man who gave me that Bible." And I've got to say, I've seen probably a million little Catholic videos on YouTube in my lifetime. I think about this Penn video more than about 90% of the Catholic videos I've ever seen. Leave it to an atheist magician to kind of plunge this dagger of truth into my soul. One of the top comments of that video says, "Mr. Gillette, you probably don't realize, but that was the best 5-minute sermon many of us have ever heard." Secrets are no fun. We share the gospel with sincerity and joy. We're not going to hurt anyone. On the contrary, we may begin to dispel the misconceptions about our own faith that are held by so many people. And wouldn't that be wonderful, to reach out to those who are lost, to be able to offer something, to offer meaning to someone who doesn't see their life as having any meaning, to be able to give the hope of eternity to someone who feels confined by his or her own mortality, to be able to offer freedom to someone who is a slave to the idols of passion in this world, to be able to offer identity to someone who doesn't believe that he or she could be loved or cared for by anyone. We're all prophets, and the world needs us to be prophets, and not prophets of our own egos or our own ideas, but prophets of Jesus. Not keepers of secrets and hidden information, but proclaimers of a message that's meant to be shouted from the rooftops. Because this faith is not just for me, it's not just meant for you, it's not meant for you to pass down from one generation to the next like an heirloom, it's meant for the whole world.